This is Do It for a Living, your source for inside information on the future of automotive performance.
I would say I'm extremely passionate, driven in anything I do. I wanted to go fast, so welding was a step that needed to be learned, so I learned it.
What's holding you back from starting or growing your business into what it can be? Well, if you're listening to this, it's not a lack of information. What you're about to hear is all you need to get motivated and start making waves. Do It for a Living podcast details the journey of today's true players in their own words. Find out how they broke out so you can too. The time is now. The time is always now.
Welcome back to another episode of Do It for a Living. I'm Kevin Dubois. This week we've got Cody Loveland of Lovefab. Cody has been around for a very long time in the import tuning world. I believe he got to start doing Honda stuff, but I know him from doing NSXs. That's where I have originally met him, was at Pikes Peak when he took a vehicle called the, I don't think it was called the NV8 at the time, but it was a wild custom body NSX for the huge aero for the hill climb. So that's where we met each other first. And I have seen him at every single convention, I think, for the past 4 years or so. We say hi and talk about how it's going. But Cody, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Kevin. Thanks for having me on here.
Why don't you go ahead and get us started by telling us your background? I kind of touched on it a little bit, but that is not obviously the whole story. Where did you get started with cars? Take us back to when you were a kid and kind of bring us up to when you got your business started.
Absolutely. Well, I guess it started, my first interest in cars started, probably, 4, 5, 6 years old, somewhere in there. Those plastic glue together models back in the day. And then I became interested in mountain biking pretty heavily. So from there, I started working at bike shops. I worked at, a few different bike shops throughout my teens, as a mechanic. So that's kind of where I learned my mechanical aptitude. And then I turned 16 and discovered that bikes were slow and took a lot of work to make fast. So that's when I got into cars. When I was 16, I couldn't change my own oil. By the time I was 17, I was installing and building one of my first homemade turbo kits. So this would have been 2001. Okay. From there, basically just kept building. Somehow I cobbled together a merge collector and posted a picture on Honda Tech, and next thing you know, I woke up to 50-something messages the next day wanting manifolds. I'm like, well, I guess I could do it. At the time, I was working at UPS. I was their next-day air sorter, which was, pretty high up the ranks as far as the time that I'd been there. But it was a slave drive job. It was pretty brutal. So next thing you know, I kind of my stepdad bought me my welder with 20% interest, and then I had him paid back the next month. But so basically learned how to TIG weld back then. Started building manifolds, and that was I think I incorporated in 2003. So, but I've been kind of hardcore since 2001. So
where was this at?
This is in Williamsburg, Michigan, so near Traverse City, Michigan. As
we have talked about in the past, I am also a Michigan resident, or from Michigan, and I also raced bikes, and we were always like, I wonder if we raced against each other.
You probably did back in the day. I mean, I ran the Iceman. I won the Iceman one of the years in my age group, and
as did I.
Who knows? Yeah, maybe you beat me the second year. I got third place.
And so you're out of Michigan there, and what was the Honda that you were building these the turbo kits for?
My first Honda was an EK Coupe. It was just a. Let's see. I started as an LS VTEC, and then I sold ahead to buy a turbo kit, and that's actually kind of where it all started. Was I got ripped off. Introduced to the scammer world, I suppose. Never received the turbo kit. The guy did get arrested and taken to court and all that. I think I saw $27 out of the $1,500 I sent him. But in that meantime, that's kind of when I was like, well, time to build my own. So, so it was an EK Honda was the first one.
And you're being in Michigan, has that been conducive to, doing this import tuning stuff? I mean, obviously customers are harder to find, and you were really doing this kind of at the forefront of when forums really started to grow, I guess.
Yeah, no, Michigan's terrible. Northern Michigan specifically is terrible for the import market, especially the higher end, which is what I'm into now. I don't have any Michigan cars here. Technically, let's see, I have 2 international cars here right now. So, yeah, if I depended on local business, I'd have been gone a long time ago.
And so you got a welder from, or you bought one with your uncle or whoever it was, and you started learning to weld on your own. That was just like passion? I mean, like obviously you liked working on bikes, and you kind of took that over to working on cars. But I mean, like welding, is that just something you wanted to do, or what made you want to do that?
I would say I'm extremely passionate driven in anything I do. I wanted to go fast, so welding was a step that needed to be learned, so I learned it.
Take us to like 2003 timeframe. You incorporated as Lovefab at that time. Is that the first name of the business?
Yeah,
okay.
Lovefab Inc. Pretty simple. Yeah.
Okay, and then you're just manufacturing manifolds. Is that the idea?
Yeah, I was from 2003 to 2005. I was full bore into basically manifolds and downpipes. I mean, for your average Honda, I dabbled in some Evo stuff, but I was already known in the Honda market. It's hard to break into a new market. As time went on, I've learned that it's becomes harder and harder.
Give us a transition. Like, how did you go from working at UPS to when did you go full time at the shop?
I worked at UPS through, I want to say, May of 2003. I had a DBA for Lovefab, I think, in 2002. So I kind of dual worked. And then May, I decided to quit UPS and go full time. Simultaneously, I also did not return to college that year. I have 1 year of college under my belt. I was going for engineering, and I just kind of looked at the potential income. I'm like, first year in business, I was already making more than my mother was at the time. And I do have regrets. I would love to go back to school to learn, the formal engineering side, and I still may. But for now, just kind of keep going here. But so I just got sick of working at UPS, slaving away. It was nights for, a couple $100 a week, basically, in a paycheck, if you're lucky.
Okay.
And decided to jump all in with Lovefab.
Okay. Do you think of yourself as an entrepreneur? Is starting a business something you went out to do, or did it just kind of happen that you were doing something you liked and you were making enough money that it made sense to just make a business out of it?
Exactly the latter. Growing up, I envisioned getting a job and all that stuff, but as time went on, I just kind of liked what I was doing and was making enough money to make a living, so just did it.
And it didn't cross your mind that like, what if business slows down, and what's going to happen if I don't have customers? Like, is taking all the risk of starting your own company, is that something that like how did that work out for you?
I've always kind of been a risk taker. Biking, skiing. I'd be the one that would huck off a jump 3 stories in the air and fly 300-400 feet down the hill before you land. So I guess more or less that transition to the business side. It's still a concern. Even now, I'll go 2-3 months without a single sale, and then I'll have a $80,000-$90,000 month. You just kind of learn to deal with it and try not to stress about it.
Yeah, cash flow problems, right?
Yes,
that's the problem with big builds. Is it can be dry for several months, and then you have a glut of money for a month or so.
Exactly, and then when you do have constant cash flow, you have issues with getting your guys here to do their damn jobs. So,
okay, so. How did Lovefab grow? I mean, in 2003, was it just yourself working full time? When did you bring on people?
2003, I want to say the entire year was just myself. 2004, I brought on a welder, taught him from scratch. He was just a high school kid. Had him for 2 years. At that point, my parents built a pole barn on their property. It was a pretty big pole barn, a couple thousand square feet. And I was renting that from them. So we had 2 guys welding. We were cranking out, 3-4 manifolds a day, which was a lot back then. So that went until 2005 when I got a cease and desist from the township because we were not commercially zoned at the time. So
I got one of those before too.
Yep. And it was bullshit. It was only good things for the community. I was respectful of all that, but jealous neighbor that was unemployed because there was kind of a little bit of a economy collapse back then too, which I didn't feel it because I was just a kid. So, but anyway, so that happened, and it forced me to find another shop basically within 30 days. which that led me to my current home shop scenario, which is commercially zoned.
Right now, you're working out of you're like working out of the garage at your house, right?
It's a separate shop. Yeah, it's about 900 square feet. It's got high ceilings and all that. So
because you had an actual mechanic shop at one point too, right? I mean, that
Yes.
was really what Lovefab was.
Well, basically, so 2006, bought the house shop, worked out of there until 2012, and then at that point, I was extremely busy, had a bunch of builds backed up, and decided to rent a larger shop. So, that's about when I met you, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
So 2012, moved into a 7,000 square foot shop. That was a big jump. I was not ready for that in hindsight. I made that work until 2014, which in that time period I had a child. Family life started to go, and I couldn't put the time into it that was needed to keep it going, mainly because I didn't have the planning in place.
As you're growing through this, when did you start doing NSXs? Because that's what I know you for, and that's obviously, kind of regarded as almost an exotic car. It's not something everybody just has. And we kind of touched on you being in Michigan. How do you draw customers in with NSXs from literally all over North America? Because you have Canadian customers as well, I believe.
I've had European customers, so really all over the world.
So how do you draw those cars to you? That's something that's difficult to do.
Well, I would say I started working on NSXs in 2005, pretty much to the transition to the home shop there. Was one of the first people to really introduce a reliable turbo kit for them, which was tuning all of it. So we had done between 2006 and 2012, we had done about 100 turbo NSXs. No engine builds. I think we'd done one or two engine builds, but they were, kind of a learn it. Let's get into it and see what we can do. Personal shop car, we ended up making 1,000 horse out of one of those. But so basically, we broke into the market with something that was reliable, that was built very well, tested. I tracked the heck out of the cars. I'm a firm believer if you have a good product, it's going to sell itself.
So did you buy the car first, or were you working on customer cars or friends? How did you get started with it?
Let's see, the NSX, I was working on S2000s. I think I had owned two of them at the time, and then a buddy of mine brought me one of his customers' NSXs. He's like, hey, let's build a turbo kit. So we did that. And the first time I sat in an NSX, I'm like, that's it. I have to have one. It was actually a Swiss NSX. It was from Switzerland. Wow. So I sat in the car. I'd already had the turbo kit fabricated at the time, but the car was not running. There was a lot of stuff that needed to be done. So I sold both my S2000s and bought an NSX next week. And then, and then basically that first prototype kit went on my personal NSX, and I started testing the crap out of that.
So you basically jumped headfirst into it. You sat in one. You got introduced with another buddy's shop or a customer, and then you did all the development work on your own vehicle.
Yep. And again, very passionate driven. I was like, I have to have one. It's just so I did that, and the rest is history so far.
Is that all you were doing for a while then? Or were you still doing the Civic stuff?
Yeah, we've always kind of built the manifolds. The last few years, they've really dropped off just because find a clean EG Civic, it's not going to happen anymore. They're getting pretty rare. But we've always done the manifolds. Even then, we were still doing manifolds. So I more or less had one guy that was on manifolds all day, and then myself would do the NSXs. Mainly because I've trust issues there, and they have to be done exactly as I want.
Uh-huh. Have you ever doubted yourself and wondered if this doesn't work? And how did you overcome that feeling and move forward?
Trying to think. Yes, I would say in the engine build side of things. More or less, I discovered that you can't control customers. You can't control what they do with their cars. So, I've had a few issues. You own up to it, you fix it, and you move forward. And if they won't follow instruction or what have you, then it's nothing you can do about it.
So you've avoided building engines, then, it sounds like.
The last few years, yes. There's only a very few select packages I will do, and that's also dependent on the customer. If I get a certain feeling, then I'll just avoid it. I'll send them something else.
Not worth the trouble, huh?
Nope, it is not.
Can you explain the worst experience you've had in business?
Yes, this would have been 2010, I believe. Went out to New Jersey to pick up a car. They had a tuning issue, quote unquote. Get the car back, fail the leak down test, 80% leak down. The car had already been through a previous shop. It was built. It was an NSX. Had a turbo kit. It was just a shit show all around. So basically, this is where the issue started. Was nothing was documented. Everything was done over the phone. So fast forward 2 years, he said turned into she said, and apparently I was on the hook for a $40,000 build for $10,000. Get that done because I'm trying to avoid an internet disaster, more or less being blackmailed, right? Have an engine failure. Come to find out, it was a wiring issue with the car that was dead shorting a sensor ground in the ECU, which killed the ECU, which blew a hole in the piston, bent the crank, all kinds of nasty shit. Rebuild that, and something else happened. So here we are. I'm already upside down $30,000. So you had 2 engine rebuilds for essentially free. You're upside down another $20,000. So that was it. The basic thing I learned there is you need to document everything ahead of time. Signed agreements, and this is kind of where my shop assist comes in. Mm-hmm. So had you been around, had my shop assist been around back then, I probably, I'd have another $70,000 in the bank. So
yeah, and that's when we first met each other. I think that was you were already knees deep in this thing. I mean, were wading through the shit that was, basically putting this guy's car together for nothing, essentially, right? Yep,
I was paying him to put his car together, and then so get it together. He has it for a year, and ends up going to another shop, and they cranked the boost way up. They blew the shit out of the engine, and then the internet shit show happened anyway. I was blamed for several things that
of course, right.
Nothing I could have done. I didn't have the car for a year, and so lesson learned. You get that feeling, you run for the hills on that.
And even after all of that, you still take all the shit for whatever it was online, right? So I mean, had you just told him to basically screw off at the beginning, you may have saved $70,000. Was that something that would have been far more detrimental?
Oh, no, I should have done that at the beginning. The other thought is potentially get aggressive and mechanically in the car. So, or just push it outside, say, come get it. But hindsight's 20/20. I don't know. There are different laws of different states. This was an out-of-state deal, so I don't know. Again, and if we would have went into a legal battle, who knows where that would have went.
Right.
So, I guess chalk it up to, like I said, I didn't really pursue college, so this basically the cost of a college education right there is
right. Yeah, that's your MBA, right?
There you go. That's business ethics 101. So,
and so I mean, obviously, it sounds like you had the chance to do it over again, you would have done it differently, right?
Yeah, I would have listed everything out in a detailed invoice, had them sign it and agree, and if there's a written paper trail, you can't go back on what was said. Period.
Yeah.
So, which also protects him, So.
And some of this was, this is going on when you moved into that bigger building too, right? The 7,000 square one?
It was. This was, I think we were about 2 years into it. I think we'd had the first engine built then, but it wasn't installed in the car yet. And then right around then is when Pikes Peak happened with the NSX the first year, which is when I met you. And he got pissed off because it was more or less delayed so I could get that done, which I don't blame him. I don't blame him on that. Yeah, so that's when the shit show started with, well, you said you would do this, this, and this. I'm like, I didn't say that. I said I'd just rebuild your engine. But in any case, it was, so that's what started the aggressive negotiations on his behalf was when things were delayed for racing. So
okay. Yeah, and it's something kind of unavoidable. Race cars always seem to move themselves to the front of the list because it's our passion, right?
That's right. And, when you're at the level that I'm at, I mean, I can't afford to build these things myself, so I have to take on sponsors, and they also expect results. So it's a balance that gets old pretty quick.
Okay, so you touched on the building the Pikes Peak car. I mean, I mean, that was obviously not a cheap build. That started as your actual NSX, right? Was that your car? Did you buy a separate shell for that, or how did it work the first year?
Yeah, that was my third NSX that I'd owned. I owned two of them at once, two of them together at one time. But this one I bought more or less as a cheap race car the year prior. Beat the snot out of it for the year, and then I decided to, well, more or less look into the rules. Doing a simple time attack at the time wasn't enough return for kind of what I wanted. I wanted more exposure, I suppose. So yeah, I built the car for Pikes Peak. No, that wasn't cheap. And yes, people had heard of Lovefab, but they hadn't really heard of me or what I could do or, all that stuff yet. So yeah, it was a pretty much a self-funded deal. Obviously I had some parts sponsored, but, no cash from anyone or anything like that. So
yeah.
Yep.
And you took the car to Pikes Peak, and so now we've got a customer that has basically raked you over the coal for $50,000, and you're building essentially an unlimited build race car.
Correct.
And you moved into a 7,000 square foot. So this whole thing kind of it kind of crumbled apart, and you went back in your garage, right? You gave up on the 7,000 square foot, and I think for a while you had actually essentially. Did you shut down Lovefab, or is it still there?
No, I had an emotional post that people thought I was just shutting it down, which was not the case. I just kind of stepped back from the whole engine build side, the actual full build, and kind of still am. I don't really have the space to do full builds right now. So, turbo kit installations, tuning, all that stuff, we still do. The aero side, which was started after all this, we're still doing that. But yeah, so all that stuff happened, and in the midst of that, I also had a daughter, and kind of decided that I didn't want to spend, 18 hours a day at the shop trying to pay rent, basically. So that's when I decided to close the big shop. Lovefab was still operational, and the landlord's actually very cool. They more or less let me skip out on the last 3 months of rent to prep the home shop again, to re-prep, because I had to move the dyno in and all that. Which they let me pay them back over the next year. So it was cool.
Oh, okay.
It worked out really well. So
that's convenient.
Yeah. So it was nice. So.
Okay. So you're back into your garage here. And how many employees did you have when you were in the bigger shop?
At one point, I think I had 5. I had some mechanics, some fabricators. I did hire a business manager at one point, which didn't work. So it was, like I said, kind of a shoot from the hip. Let's see if it works. In hindsight, I would have probably hired an engine guy, someone that was experienced in engine building, and I would have ran the business, and that's all I would have done.
Okay.
Couple that with the disaster job that we started with, probably would be pretty successful had it not been for all that.
Yeah. So you really have had really highs and really lows, kind of in your build up to where you're at right now. So what's something you're doing right now that has you fired up?
Well, we've got the NV8, which is, tube chassis, super unlimited car that we're still building, still sorting, still breaking. The plan for that is I would like to try to build and sell those as a product, in various different packages, kind of however the customer would like. So that's, and it's gotten a lot of attention through media, international, local, all that stuff. So that's the exciting thing. We're working with a well-known producer on a documentary of sorts to cover kind of this whole journey, building up to the car more or less to race it at Pikes Peak, assuming we actually get in this year. So that's the next exciting thing, and full of unknowns, and none of that is up to me at this point. We have to somehow woo a network to buy the documentary, and also finish the car and all that fun stuff. So
okay, and so for people who are not familiar with the NV8, the first year you did Pikes Peak, it was still a NSX chassis, correct?
Correct. That was an NSX with some carbon work and some big wings.
And then the second year you had built basically a tube chassis for it, and you was that one still the NSX engine in the back of that one?
No, I built basically fixtured the NSX chassis and did a tube chassis center drive NSX that bolted up NSX suspension, but I retrofitted a the V8 and the Porsche transaxle to that.
Okay, that's okay.
And that's what failed. Who would have knew? Who knew that reusing aluminum control arms that are 25 years old and putting 600 foot-pounds of torque to them would cause them to break? I mean, who would have thought? So that's what happened. I had a suspension part fail, and the car went up in spectacular flames.
And so for people who haven't seen that one, you just Google Cody Loveland crash at Pikes Peak, and I'm sure you'll find the. You basically spun it, and you're lucky to be alive, honestly.
Yeah. I am.
The car exploded when you hit the boulder, essentially, right?
Hollywood tries to recreate what I did on accident.
Right. But you walked away unhurt, and the chassis was mangled pretty good, but you actually rebuilt it. I mean, that's where you're at right now, right? You were able to fix it and save some of it.
The engine and transaxle were okay. The chassis was okay too, but at that point I'm like, well, I've got nothing but time now, so I lopped off the front and the rear of the driver's cell, and made a more or less a skinnier chassis, which allowed me to get pretty crazy with the aero. So that's where we're at now. So that's inboard suspension, all that fun stuff, cantilevers, third element springs to handle the aero loading, and just the amount of momentum that car's gained over the last couple of years is still kind of scratching my head over it. I'm not sure how I did it or why people are in, but they are. So
yeah, and this is always something that has amazed me, is how good you are at marketing yourself in the vehicle, because I know lots of people who build race cars, but I don't know hardly any of them that are able to get any recognition and I guess media coverage for it. So whatever you're doing, it seems to be working very well.
I think it's just kind of what the documentary's touching on is I don't like rules. I don't like classing. I just do what I want to do, and the car kind of shows that, I think. So, and like I said, somehow supporters and people that are more educated than myself have jumped in to help. Case in point is Sebastian from Sauber F1. His day job, he designs F1 cars. Mm-hmm. And then at night he comes home and plucks away at my car and, runs CFD simulations, builds, he built all the body patterns and everything. So stuff like that. Then you've got, guys like Adam Peeling, who was with Haltech for a while. After PRI last year, they said, hey, stop by the shop. So I ended up bringing the car down to Kentucky, which is where Haltech's based, and Adam and I wired up the whole thing in 3-4 days, and he's been involved with more or less initial tuning and setup. I do touch-up tuning and things, but he's going to help me sort out how to get the anti-lag working, because the blown diffuser is ridiculous. So just stuff like that.
and this car is pretty wild. So I've watched again, for people who are, if they're in front of a computer, some of these YouTube videos are pretty fun to watch. I think you did one of the hill climbs there in Michigan, and it sounded like you were on the traction control basically anytime you were in a straight line. There's plenty of power and very little traction when you're accelerating, right?
Yeah, and right now it's making, spinning in my dyno, it's just under 800 wheels, so it's, over 800 at the wheels. Car weighs 2,000 pounds. It's, 1-to-1 in Koenigsegg speak, pound per kilogram. So that's on a junkyard engine. We haven't even put anything worthy in there yet. So there's no point. We haven't been able to use what's in there.
Yeah. You could pull the turbos off and it'd still be stupid fast, right?
Yeah, probably. And that's one of the packages I do want to offer the car in, is just a crate LS3 or whichever.
Now, do you have jigs made for the car, or is it a one-off deal still?
We have the full body molds, so we're ready to do those. I've got portions of the chassis fixture. There's some things I want to change. I just haven't implemented the changes. Just too busy with life.
Okay.
But if we get, sale one, get a deposit on one, we'll go through and make the changes, just to polish things, to make it a little more seamless.
Right. The development, really, is developing a car. You can constantly tweak stuff, and so you have learned a lot from this first one. So the next one will be, several steps better. Essentially, is what you're saying. That's
right. And the other thing I've learned is downforce is difficult. So we're right now, as a car sits, we're somewhere around 5,500 pounds of downforce at 300 kph.
Okay.
Everything's braking. So we're before we tested the car, we had everything calculated. with a safety factor 3 or 4, and we're still breaking shit. So that's where we're at now. And unfortunately, the point where we're at now is going to be very expensive to get it where it needs to be. So
is it rework? Because when you're out at the track the other, I guess it was earlier this summer, you started getting it up to speed, and like the front, the under tray / wing essentially broke off the mount. Is that one of the things that happened? Like the aero loading was too big for the support structure for it?
Yes, and that's also kind of a separation. I mean, the car was designed in Switzerland digitally, so then I have the parts here, and I have to try to make it work. So we've gone through and reinforced everything. But yeah, I mean, this summer at Road Atlanta, 110 miles an hour on the dot, the front wing would start oscillating. So I ended up
porpoising. Is that what they call it? They call it porpoising when you start...
Yeah, but it was side to side. It was laterally. It was really weird. So yeah, it was a version of porpoising. But part of what allowed that to happen was the front nose structure, the chromoly that I built, was not strong enough. Okay. So we rebuilt that out of full titanium, which was beautiful. And
fancy.
a quarter of the weight. So then, we also went through and bonded in a bunch of tubing inside the wing itself. It probably overboard, but it works, so I'm happy with it. So,
and that kind of just brings you where you're at today. So.
Yep, and that's where we're at today. And then, but then we ran out of weather. I'm looking outside. It's 7 degrees Fahrenheit, and there's about a foot of snow on the ground, and it's snowing.
And for people who were at the PRI show last week, you were your car was in the Motovicity booth, right?
Correct. Yeah, it was in the Motovicity booth.
All right, so let's take a quick break here, and we'll continue on with the business that you're running. Owning a shop is difficult, so we created My Shop Assist to help you manage the various jobs. Whether you run a machine shop, a performance tuning shop, build off-road trucks, or even do powder coating, My Shop Assist can help. It is completely online and will help you schedule the jobs, log time on each task, track parts orders, and take pictures of the work. You can even export your jobs from My Shop Assist into QuickBooks as invoices. So if you're interested in improving operations at your shop, check out myshopassist.com to start your 30-day free trial. Okay, we're back with Cody Loveland from Lovefab. And Cody, so why don't you go ahead and tell us about, the business itself. So you mentioned you're working out of like a barn on your lot, and so you said it's about 900 square feet, and you own that, right?
Correct, yeah, I own that.
Okay. And have you ever actually written a formal business plan, or is it just kind of winging it and, kind of whatever works is what you've been doing?
Well, 2012, after I was in the big shop, I wrote some stuff down, wrote some goals, which coincidentally involved, starting some carbon, some aero things, some financial goals. Everything but the financial goals were actually hit, which surprised me. Didn't really know how it happened. It just kind of happened. So, but the financial goals obviously had some other stuff dragging things down. So, we know why that didn't happen. So,
and you call the aero side of it. You've named it a separate company, to Affinity Aero, right?
Yeah, Affinity Aero. It's kind of a play on love and fab and air and affinity. I don't know, but yeah. So it's Affinity Aero. It isn't really nothing profitable yet. I guess I'm still in early development on that. I don't really have a product line. I mean, yes, I can do custom anything, but mainly don't have the manpower to really jump into it. It's kind of just an entity right now. But as things progress, who knows where it's going to go. So,
and composites is not something that's easy either. It takes some equipment, and the equipment to get started is not that expensive, but definitely it takes a lot of skill, and it takes a lot of skill to do it very well too, huh?
Correct. Yeah, and it's I'm not a body guy. I don't have the patience for it, so that would be one of the things that I would require to jump into that full bore. Is I'd have to get a body guy or even a specialty composites guy. Like I said, I can do it myself. I've done decently well. What I call a C- finish, someone else calls a B+. So I don't know, but it's light, it's functional. That's where I'm at right now.
Okay. How many employees do you have?
I've got one full-time guy, and I've got a part-time guy right now, and that's honestly all the shop can handle in its current size.
Right. And do you find it difficult to manage them, or is it easier with there only being just a couple of you?
It's not bad to manage. Basically, I'm the only mechanic, if you will. Those guys are fab guys, so I don't trust other people with wrenching after my experience with the big shop. So, on top of the big build, I had somebody drop a timing belt gasket, a rubber gasket, in the timing belt valley and an NSX. Yeah, 25-cent gasket cost about $9,000 after it took out all the valves. That was awesome.
Ouch. Yeah. That's
So
fun.
yes, I'm skeptical of trusting other people to work on stuff right now.
Understandable.
Mm-hmm.
And so with the guys you're managing, if they're just fab, it's you basically take an order from your web page or something and just kind of hand it to them and tell them to make a manifold. Is that kind of what they're doing for you?
That's about it. They do clock into MSA. I use MSA for all my time clocks. If they're on a custom job that requires every minute to be clocked, they'll clock into that. I'll build the sheet in MSA. They start, stop, all that fun stuff.
And what are your sources of revenue? Part sales, service, manufacturing. Where do you kind of break it down?
I tune here. We have a 2-wheel drive dyno, which in Michigan everything's 4-wheel drive, so that's not really that busy. So you have installations. We install all of our kits if the customer wants us to. I don't really do wrenching to wrench. Usually it's only involved with installing a product.
Okay.
And then manufacturing. Turbo kits. We've got 3 kits we're shipping out next week, and some aero stuff. I'm shipping an aero package to Europe just after the New Year here. So,
how many hours a week are you working?
Oh Christ, I guess that depends. On average, probably 50 to 60.
Okay, so you're not working ridiculous hours, but it's still quite a few, huh?
Exactly. I mean, let's just say early this summer, I met someone awesome. She has 2 boys, twin 13-year-old boys, and we have a lot of fun together. They're into the same stuff I am. We've rediscovered biking. We ski. The family life that more or less has been great. So that's limited that, and I'm fine with that. I would rather make a little less money and enjoy life.
Okay, so it sounds like the family and outside of work has affected your schedule and has allowed you to cut back on shop hours, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a difficult thing to get used to because over the last 15 years I'm used to working whatever I need to, but it's rewarding. And
with what you're doing now, I mean, it sounds like you're still doing the work. I mean, it's easy enough to manage it that you don't have to. You're not sitting in the office. You're still, doing the fab work, right? Or
correct. I actually
wrenching or tuning or whatever, maybe.
I don't really do much fab work. Anything that's production based, I don't really do anymore.
Okay.
Because I don't need to. I'm doing the wrenching, I'm doing the tuning, and I'm doing like a new product or a custom fab deal. Anything with composites, I do myself because I haven't trained the other guys on it.
Does the pay justify the time spent?
I don't know if I could make the money I make doing anything else that I enjoy doing, if that makes any sense. I could probably make more money going and working for a big manufacturer, but wouldn't have any freedom.
Yeah, and you lose out on the fun aspect, right?
Correct, yeah.
Have you been working to improve the process at your shop since you moved into the barn on your yard, or I guess your lot?
Yeah, it's with having limited space, you have to be very careful on what's on the lift, what's not, scheduling. Need to make sure all your parts are in stock before you start the job, which, never really happens, but you try. Yeah, so with my operation, it's not it's not really anything super huge to manage. So I keep it small. It's easy to deal with. You always have monkey wrenches and plans, but yeah. So I mean, I'm constantly trying to improve efficiency. If I see someone on their phone, I tell them hang up their phone, stuff like that.
Have you been able to measure any of those like improvements? Is it showing up in your returns at all, or is it still just kind of whatever's left at the end of the day, throw it in the race car sort of thing?
Nothing really measurable, probably due to the fact we don't have enough volume to really measure. At the big shop, I was tracking things, and I did have to institute phones. Phones are killers right now, and they always have been. I instituted a no phone policy and saw productivity jump pretty high after that. Okay.
And you mentioned you're using MSA. Are you using QuickBooks or anything else to manage the business?
I don't do any of the accounting myself. I have an accountant that does it, mainly because I don't want to screw anything up. But I use MSA for job tracking, for time clock, to track the hours that I work. And I wish I would have used it to track the hours on the race car, but I'd probably go into the fetal position and cry if I actually knew.
That's one of the discussions that me and Todd and Richard had when we got back. We're like, Cody, he has a number for that car, but I wonder how many hours he's actually got in it, because I wonder if you make money even at that price. It's one of those things that, like, you don't know until you actually do it. But obviously doing it a one-off, like the first one is going to have all your development time in it. Like comparing it to like the F-35, and maybe the first one's maybe like $100 billion, but then everyone after that's only 100 million.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I'm probably north of 3,000 hours, to be honest. I mean, I don't even know. And that's, I've had random, employees help me with things here and there. So, I've paid them for some time on it. And yeah, it's a huge number. I know that.
And is that the sole source of your, marketing and advertising, is the race car?
Not necessarily. The race car is definitely a showcase for everything I can do. We use Facebook, social media for Lovefab and Affinity, and for the race car itself, since that's just recently been listed as a product. So,
okay. Are you doing forums still?
NSX Prime is the only forum I'm really a part of, and I jump on that maybe once a month, if that.
It's not very often.
Now, forums, I don't know. Like you said, I started business right when forums were starting, and I think they're dead or dying. If not, it's weird. Just with everybody's charging to be on there to even say anything, it's just not worth it anymore. Plus, you have to pay someone to police it. And I don't have time to sit on forums all day. I got work to do.
Right. I think we're in agreement there.
Yeah.
And so most of your sales are coming from your webpage, then? Is that's where you're generating sales from?
For me, it's probably Facebook and other stuff. I actually don't really direct much sales through my website, because everything I do right now is fairly custom.
Okay.
Even the turbo kits, they want this or that, So it's almost easier just to deal with them direct, and then I just run their card or do a wire. Just do everything through Facebook. So.
Okay. So let's move on to the long answer questions here. What's something you struggle with business, and how do you deal with it?
Definitely the cash flow is something that's hard for me. I've never really had a line of credit, never been given one. Obviously I have credit cards. Some have balances. So yeah, so that's the hardest thing for me right now is trying to keep a constant cash flow.
Yeah, that's definitely one a lot of people struggle with, myself included. I finally think for myself personally, I think I've leveled it out. I always run into the problem of November, December timeframe for me, is because we do the SEMA show for a week, and then you got Thanksgiving for a couple days, then you got PRI show for a week, and then you got Christmas for a week. So November, December, I have plenty of customers. I just can't get the work done fast enough. So that's where my cash flow problem always comes in. And so I think your situation is not unique.
Yeah. For me, though, honestly, it's May and June. Those are my terrible months. So,
and that's when racing season just gets started for you, right?
Yeah. So you might as well just shut down the shop and go racing instead of trying to work and race. I mean, traditionally May and June are my worst months over the last 15 years.
That's very interesting.
Well, people want to get out and drive their cars. It doesn't matter what climate you're in. May and June are beautiful.
Okay.
So those are my slow months, which works because the bills are the lowest. There's virtually no bills, whereas right now I'm forking out $2,000 a month in heat. So,
oh wow, okay.
I don't mind having more business this time of year. That's for sure.
Okay. So you're the opposite of us, because if I need air conditioning, it's $2,000 a month to run the air conditioner.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we need air conditioning like 2 weeks of the year up here, so it's you just sweat it out.
Okay. Do you have a 1-year plan for your business?
Not on paper, but I'd like to get a deposit or two in the race cars. We've got this documentary thing that's happening that hopefully will be signed, meaning a network will buy it. I'm assuming Netflix or Amazon or something like that's going to get into it, because it's pretty cool so far. If that happens, that'll really vault everything into place.
I've got to ask, how do you even market something to Amazon or Netflix?
I don't do it. You have the producer do it.
Okay, so he approached you about doing a documentary about the car, or did you approach him?
He approached me, and we've shot some footage. We've done an edit, and we presented to a few companies at PRI. Bigger fish. Okay. I'm beyond needing parts at this point in the game. I need some pretty good cash. Yes, exactly. So he's the one that's going to do the pitching. He's had several successful shows. I don't want to say which ones because it's still kind of all private, but I think we have a pretty good chance of getting it done. And then from there, we get a show signed, sweet. Now what? Now we've got this junkyard engine that, it's going to take $300,000 to get the car where it really needs to be. That's where the sponsors come in. So,
okay. All right. Do you have a 5-year plan? Like, have you looked further forward than that?
I mean, ideally, I'd like to be into full development of these cars, offer different models, because where I see the industry going is I think it's doomed, if I'm bluntly honest. With the EPA, with all this other shit going on, I think the days of working on a street car are numbered.
Okay.
So I'm personally transitioning to full track mode. Also, given the fact that, the entitlement generation, I bought an engine from you 6 years ago and it blew up. So I want a free engine or I'm going to blow you up on the internet. I don't want to deal with that shit anymore. So, you know what? You're at the track. You're beating the shit out of it. You crashed. You broke something. Yeah, I'll build you another one. So that's where I'm at.
Okay.
And that's where I'd like to be fully committed to within the next 5 years.
Some good foresight. I think you're definitely, on track for, like the EPA. And there's a discussion in the Do It for a Living community now is Trump obviously being elected will probably rein in the EPA a little bit. But I think what's going to happen is the rest of the world is moving forward. And if we move backwards 4 years from now, they may have an even more liberal president that may institute even more EPA regulations. So our industry, we can't bank on there being no regulation forever. And I think you're on point with saying, it's not going to be there. I'm not going to plan for it. Plan for the race cars, build it up now while you can still do streetcar stuff. And then when there's nothing but race cars, you're 4 years ahead of everybody else, right?
That's right. And you can still always do street cars as long as they allow it. And I still will do that work. It's kind of where I see things going. And also, as enthusiasts mature throughout time. I mean, I've got guys that are my age that were buying stuff from me 15 years ago. Mm-hmm. They're all racing in various series, or they're in Lambos or whatever, Mm-hmm. Tony from T1, he was a customer of mine back in the day. One of his customers was a customer of mine, and they're all doing amazing things. So it's just, I don't know, just the way I see things going. I think, everybody needs to expand and grow into that.
We like to take action on Do It for a Living. Can you suggest an action item our listeners can take away to improve their situation?
Document everything ahead of time before anything's billed out or agreed to, period.
And you learned your lesson the hard way, and it's the worst way to learn a lesson, but you learn it, right?
That's right. I think, given my situation and the fact that I was able to more or less shrink again to get through it, mm-hmm. Allowed me to survive. I don't know that many other shops would have survived that, to be honest.
I think you're right.
So, and I could have just shut it down and, filed Chapter 11 and said, fuck everybody, but I don't want to do that. I generally think I'm a pretty decent human being, and, I enjoy what I do. I don't want to stop, so.
And your passion has pushed you through to it, even though it, you have to swallow some pride in reducing the shop and, cutting back on everything, but at the end, you learn and then you move forward, and now you're growing again.
Well, I read one of those quotes, something about those that fail the most are the most successful. So I guess I don't really view what I've done as a failure. I've viewed it as a lesson, and here's to making more lessons.
Yeah, that's always one thing that I joke about with for example, e-tuners or people who tune cars, and mm-hmm. They claim they've never blown up a car or something, and it's like, if you've never blown up a car, how do you know where the limit is? Like, my shop is filled with cars that have blown up, and it's right. It's not anything to do with the tune. It's just knowing where the limits of parts are, and sometimes things fail, and mm-hmm. To be able to admit that and learn from it is way more valuable than just flat out denying it.
No, that's right. And I've lost the nightmare build. There were several things that were beyond my control. I would not have been able to see it. And then there were a couple things I did miss that caused subsequent failures after that. But mm-hmm. Then I have another story, I guess. I had a car come in for a turbo kit install. Customer's here. He's from Canada. Great customer, by the way. So we're doing a tune. We're at like 5 or 6 pounds, starting from like 4. It's just a stock engine. We get to 7 pounds, and it's making really good power, like too good. I'm like, what's up? And I've tuned hundreds of NSXs, right? So next we do a 7-pound run, and I see smoke out of the breather. I'm like, that's not good. So and I'm doing a leak down, lost the whole rear bank. Made no sense to me. Didn't know what the hell happened. He ends up leaving the car. I tear it down. His timing belt was so loose that there was like 15 degrees of mechanical variance between the front, between the front and the rear heads. So someone in the past just didn't tighten the tensioner appropriately and cost the guy an engine. So, and I'd already billed out an agreement and a half price, this and that. Thankfully, he helped cover some of that once he realized there was nothing I did wrong. Uh-huh. But yeah, it's just one of those things. You learn. One of the things I guess I'm checking is timing belts on these things from now. So.
Right, it's one of your pre-tuned inspection.
That's
check items, right?
Which on an NSX is kind of a bitch. So the more or less you sign here. So
the takeaway for everybody is document your work, and if you don't, I mean, it can be wildly expensive. And even I have made mistakes in the years past about that as well, not documenting work, and I haven't had nearly as bad of a problem as
right.
Or at least financially. But yeah, I mean, it can be a pain in the ass. So
that's right.
Okay, so let's move on to the quick answer questions now. And so these are just kind of think whatever comes to your mind. Mm-hmm. Tell us about a game-changing product you've seen in the last year.
I think 3D printing is something. It's not really a product; it's more an industry. I think
it's actually a very common answer too. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's huge. That's going to be huge in the next 5 years.
All right. And what software are you guys using daily?
MSA is about it. Everything I do is fairly tangible. I don't really do anything intangible. Tuning, I guess, is considered intangible, but.
And the CFD stuff, that's your I guess consultant guy's deal, huh?
Yes, I don't touch that stuff. That's one of the things I would like to learn is, CAD and all whatever they call it now, SolidWorks. I don't even know what it is anymore. So. I had a year of AutoCAD in 2002, so I'm sure it's progressed astronomically since then. So
it's a little different.
Yes. So yeah.
Do you have a favorite app that you use daily on your phone? And this could be anything. Like some people have said, the Dunkin' Donuts app, Facebook, you name it, anything.
No, I use Facebook, Instagram. I think I like Instagram the best because you post from there and it reaches 15 different apps. So
okay. And what kind of car are you daily driving right now?
I'm driving my Ram. I've got a 2008 Dodge Ram dually. It's huge. It's obnoxious. Bought it new. I've got 215,000 miles on it. It's probably my favorite vehicle ever, actually. It just goes everywhere and does anything I want it to. It always gets me where I need to be. So. And
it's liveried in Lovefab because I've seen it several times as well.
Yeah, we had it wrapped in 2012. Truck Skins, a local company, wrapped it for us. So.
Okay. And what do you think the future of automotive performance is going to be?
We kind of touched on this. I think the street cars, being able to even touch them, will go away in the next, I don't know, about 5 years, probably the next decade. I think it'll be a federal offense to even touch a car. I hope I'm wrong, but you've seen government and how it works. So if you want to be in the industry, I think it's going to have to be racing or track only.
Yep. And this is kind of off topic, but Todd and I here, we're also discussing on this exact thing as well, is basically what you said on point. The government's going to not allow people to modify cars, and racing will be the thing. But with self-driving cars and autonomous vehicles kind of taking over in the next decade as well, we kind of believe that just driving a car will eventually be a thing you do. You go to the racetrack to drive a car.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I believe that. Yeah, it makes total sense because, I mean, let's face it, humans are idiots. So if you remove the human element from it, I think it's going to become a lot safer on the roads. Mm-hmm. I don't know what they're going to do about weather and interesting conditions like that, but
all that stuff can all be taken care of. Computers are smart.
Yes, they are. Time will sort all that out. So,
All right, how do we connect with you and your company?
Lovefab.com is my website. I'm on social media all over the place. Facebook, I've Lovefab. We also have NV8 Hypercar on Facebook. Affinity Arrow on Facebook, and then also on Instagram for all of those.
Okay, cool. So, Cody, I really want to appreciate you taking the time to talk with us and sharing your story.
Well, thanks for having me. It's been fun. I'll start listening. I can probably get some ideas on how to get more things on paper and achieve goals.
Thanks for listening to Do It for a Living. You can find out more about this guest, this show, and even details about what we just talked about at our website, doitforaliving.net. Check out the Facebook page at facebook.com/doitforaliving and tell us who you want to hear from. And most importantly, subscribe to the podcast. Click subscribe. Do it now. Seriously. I'll wait while you grab